and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can also find me at News That's Neat on Twitter and CB Caps on Instagram. Oh, okay.
You thought I forgot.
I was like, waiting.
Oh.
I was like, hang on a minute, something's missing here. And the man behind that particular ditty is the man behind the soundboard, our man in Brooklyn, @1agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
We're Brooklyn at! We're Brooklyn at! We're Brooklyn at!
I just found out that Sean Price and Lil Fame had an album from last December, and I meant to link that to you if you didn't already know.
Okay.
Yeah, but that'll be for later. Not with us tonight is PCN_Dirt. Like I said, we apparently use up our allotment of dirt.
Appearance for the month or for like 3 months.
Yeah, under weird circumstances, but they're all weird circumstances, so that's why we deal with it. PC_Dirt on Twitter, PopCultureNet on Twitter, PopCultureNetwork.com, and all those umbrella sites therein. And also,
I forgot.
Mm-hmm. He is also on the I dare call it the Neovine Byte. You can find him at byte.co. Well, they don't have a direct link to that, but you can find him on Byte if you are on that service at VWS. That's CMCRVWS. So it basically spells out comic reviews. Also, the Osiris of this ish, Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, the Click Nation on Twitter. That's the KLIQNATION, theclicknation.com, CB Chron, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account, and Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. So, and you can also find, while I turn on a little bit of weird weather we're having, just kind of warm. You can find this podcast here at the Cold Slither Podcast Network, that's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
Oh, yeah. And you can also find this here podcast on your podcast perusal place of choice. That be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. And with that, we get into the comic books of the week, starting off with this week's Amazing Spider-Man number 39.
Yes, this is written by Nick Spencer, art by Ivan Coelho, and colored by Brian Reber, and lettered by VC's Joe Caramagna. This issue is entitled my podcast episode with Jonah. So how appropriate to start the show with this.
Right. As Agent 70 has postulated, since we are doing the podcast, it's guess it's only fitting. Also, if you have played the PS4 Spider-Man, as I say in my notes, it's pretty much him, JJJ, taking his first steps into a similar role that he had in places in the places of Spider-Man. With the exception, he was a little bit more of the old JJJ in that, but more of a shock jock. So
right. So
he's not there yet, and he may or may not get there. But
right. So this is the premiere episode of the Jonah Jameson podcast, and it's the goal of this podcast, as laid out by JJJ himself, is to actually, believe it or not, put Spider-Man, our friendly neighborhood web slinger, into the best light possible, and to spread the good word of Spidey's heroism. And things take a turn during this premiere episode.
Yes, but we have to back up a second because, well, one, his first episode is guesting the one, the only Spider-Man, and that is all due to the fact that last issue JJJ had basically outed Spidey's involvement in a Shield secret mission, which led Spidey to kind of come find him and talk to him about this, and thus him being on the show as the first,
as the guest, right?
Guest. So, which goes, I dare say, it goes the way you expect it to with them to do, but since their relationship has changed since the classic sense, but there still is a little bit of the there's still a little bit of, let's say, egos between both of them.
Oh, sure. There's definitely tension that gets brought back up to the surface.
Yes, and that definitely does in the course of this, because as old girl behind the scenes was like, "Oh, sorry, it gets boring now, but just wait." And sure enough, it kind of picks up a little bit.
Right, that's a returning character, Nora Winters.
Mm-hmm.
So, the premise is that Nora Winters is starting up a different type of media company where that JJJ is eager to jump in on now. So, hence his new podcast fame.
Well, eager, quote unquote, because let's face it, he was hesitant about it until one, he saw the dollar signs, and two, she got the better of his ego in the laying out of the plans for it. But yes,
Absolutely.
And so here we are. And meanwhile, while this is going on, as Agent 7 and I was mentioning beforehand, there are some rather timely references to other books this week that are going on in that old floating casino that Chance is running in the sky. And a pretty nice little bit of beginning of a nice little bit of turnabout for Foreigner, who just so happens to be there and lost his winnings. So, but he thought he was like he could get the upper hand on Chance by kind of putting him on a bet that that starts to play out near the end of this issue. That involves Spider-Man and some property of his that a bet has been made for.
Right.
So we shall see how that turns out next issue or so. But basically, this is a potential click of the week for me because of the whole podcast thing. Not because we're doing the podcast, but that doesn't hurt. But also just having Spidey and JJJ on a podcast together.
Right. I mean, they're literally having it out, but in the most civil way they ever have. And
Right.
I can't help but agree with some of the points that J. Jonah brings up. Like, why can't you come to me like a grown-up and speak to me about some of the issues that we were having? And I kept thinking, Jonah, no one was ever going to do that to you. Not back then.
You were back then, yeah.
Right. Not back then.
Yeah, and I agree with that too, because it was like, okay, now he can say that, but at the same time, but he's been spending the last couple of issues kind of denying some of his
past,
some of his classic mannerisms of the past. Say, so that is not a surprise too, but there's definitely a lot of history, including a nice little, I don't know if you called it, a nice little Marvel team up reference
with.
Because Jonah was mentioning, it was like, yeah, you basically, I'm paraphrasing, but basically you can't even have a superhero team up without having to fight them first. Or something
right. And Spidey's like, that's a classic trope.
Exactly. It was like, okay, we see you, we see what you're doing there. That was pretty good though. I thought that was a nice little touch. So, but yeah, I enjoyed this issue. It was, some would argue that this is more exposition and less action to it, but I'm of the firm belief that sometimes the exposition is the action.
What I was going to say though is I think this issue was just laid out very well. I think that Ivan Quello or Cello or Kello, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, ladies and gentlemen of the Comic Book Chronicles audience, if you can tell me how to pronounce this person's name, I would be greatly appreciative. Ultimately, the story is very snappy. I give Spencer credit for really delving into this particular relationship in his run. And as you mentioned earlier, the gambit, no pun intended, the gambit between Chance and the foreigner and all of the good or bad gamblers on his floating casino, it plays out way better than I thought it would after their initial appearance in the issue prior.
Yeah, there's even a couple of really nice like splash pages, like one especially with one when when Jonah brings up like you said, Jonah bringing up how Spidey should have come to him.
Right.
One page of kind of a lot of past events that Spidey has done in retaliation to Jonah. I was like, there's a lot of good art in there like that.
Sure.
Or a couple of pieces specifically for that. So it's kind of cool.
One of my favorite lines was, "Do you know how hard it is to get webbing out of a mustache?" I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I want to say you were mentioning something about that mic. It's a little behind the scenes, but he was the mic that they were using on that does look kind of like more like a Shure. I have definitely seen that mic.
Mm-hmm. Well, the mic in the microphones actually in the issue itself are a little different than the ones that they are using that they're portrayed as being next to on the cover. So, but
Right.
just to wrap up the conversation on this book, it was just a fun read. There's definitely the slightest bit of action. It's really more of a setup to action, really.
Yeah.
But this was something that needed to be done to, I guess, further establish what the relationship between JJJ and Spidey may well become in the hands of Spencer's writing. So,
Right. So
it was pretty important in that regard. So yes, it's also a potential click of the week for myself as well.
cool beans. Next up on the menu, might as well get to the other spider related books of the week, and that would be, which is a weird one, Gwen Stacy #1. And I say weird one because like this is not Gwen Stacy that we know of at from from an alternate universe. This is 616 Gwen Stacy of the past, because this is being set basically in the beginning of the Spider-Man book.
This is a weird kind of retcon.
Before around Amazing Fantasy 15, I believe. So
No, actually, there is a range. If you read the letters page, or the note, the note from Christos Gage basically lets us know that they're dancing within the pages between the panels of several Amazing Spider-Man comics, ranging between her first appearance and like issues number 30 something. So,
but this particular issue, because especially if you think about what happens, like what gets brought up in the issue, this is which happened well before that, though.
Right. This is definitely like one or two of Amazing Spider-Man, because it definitely had to happen after Amazing 15.
Right.
So Amazing Fantasy 15, that is.
Right. But that being said, so it's let's just say newfound backstory for Gwen Stacy. Some of us would call it a retcon.
Sure. Yeah, definitely a retcon. So just very quickly, I haven't had a chance to pick up all of my books this week. I didn't want to chance it, so I stopped into the handy branch of Midtown Comics that's near my office to pick up the J. Scott Campbell cover of Gwen Stacy. It's pretty cool.
Lord.
And the book is written by Christos Gage, art by Todd Knock. Good for him getting a full
I love
series.
Todd Knock art. Yeah,
good for him getting a full series. Colors by Rochelle Rosenberg, who's really cool, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. Getting to the story itself, I think it is a retcon, but in the sense that her characterization is modernized. Her characterization is definitely influenced by several modern takes on the character, including but not limited to the Amazing Spider-Man movie, Also, Spectacular Spider-Man the cartoon. Also, Into the Spider-Verse,
Yeah.
in the sense that we see Gwen, when she's transplanted into Miles's reality, kind of acting, in a really independent way. And what else could they be drawing on other than the Spider-Gwen stuff too, like you mentioned?
Right. Yeah, that pretty much runs the gambit. It's and I felt bad about saying this. It's almost basically like they were Mary Janing Gwen Stacy for this, which probably doesn't work out the way you would in thought, but there is a parallel in there somewhere because, like I said, this is kind of some stuff like reading this, like there was some stuff you would have never known about, or that has never been known about, Gwen Stacy's past, such that who's like on this one issue, you could basically say that hey, she could have been a if she had lived and whatever else happened, she could have been captain of the police. She could have taken her dad's place.
Sure.
But based on some skill she displays in the course of this issue.
Sure, but that's that was never part of her character.
Exactly.
Originally,
Not
so-
before, but but again, that's why I said it's kind of a
Hello, retcon. So,
yeah.
I mean, we're agreed. There's nothing that there's really just a discussion about how far they go. To what extent this retcon is really a modernization of the character, but ultimately, what the story is supposed to be is a mix of both modernizing the character and telling some of the stories behind the character in between the raindrops, as it were. Of the early Spider-Man comic books, so and to help establish her character. So we find Gwen not in the same school as Peter Parker, but we see her with Harry Osborn.
And however, we do get a brief cameo by one Peter Parker.
Oh yes, he's reading up on adhesives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right before we hear about the what happened to his uncle.
Exactly.
And a page or two later. And some would argue, knowing enough about what happens to Gwen Stacy and members of her family, aka her dad, I guess past this, there could also be said that there's some foreshadowing.
Oh, definitely.
So now the bigger question in all this is that, and by the way, this is the first issue of 5.
I believe that's right.
Yes. No, I'm looking at the page now. So, and I'm only saying that because hey, this is not an ongoing. The bigger question leads to where is this leading to? If anything, like it, something like this. As I've said on other little mini event stories or whatever, it's something's coming out of it's got to. Because it doesn't really make sense. The story doesn't really make sense just to be here. Now that's not to say that they couldn't just do it at all, because they have liberty to do whatever they feel. So I mean, could it be just for anniversary sake or something like that? Which she has, Gwen Stacy has had an anniversary covers in the past few months or whatever the case may be. Could it be just that, or it could be something like maybe it's leading up to that Sin Eater stuff in some kind of way, shape, or form. I doubt that, but
we'll see. I mean, we'll see how this plays out over the course of 5 issues. I'm perfectly content with just reading this as an Untold Tales of Gwen Stacy book.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that. I don't necessarily need this to have ongoing or permanent ramifications in the Spider-Man books of today, but chances are there's going to be a few.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I just don't want to, I would agree with you, but at the same time, I'm like, this. It's got to be something to it. I mean, it may be proven to be wrong, and it just is what it is. But if it leads into something, I'd rather have that kind of getting out of the way right now. And I will say something going back to Todd Knight's art. His art is perfect for this book because he's got kind of a classic style.
Yes.
And since this is supposedly set, back in the day, it kind of sort of fit. Now, granted, it wouldn't fit to the style that was going back then, like when this is supposedly set, but still it's classic enough to where it works. I also miss him on that Nightcrawler book, but that's a whole separate story. So yeah, but that is Gwen Stacy #1. We'll have more on the rest of those issues as they come about. I believe it's monthly. I'm not sure though, actually.
No, it probably is monthly for 5 issues.
Yeah.
All right, President Bartlett.
What's next?
Go for it.
How about Doctor Strange, Surgeon Supreme #3?
Sure.
So, Roddykat and I were joking about this book just prior to the show starting. The team on this book is Mark Waid on the story, Kev Walker doing a killer job on the art, and Java Tartaglia as the colorist, and it's lettered by VC's Corey Pettit. And we open the story with something you don't expect to see. A really shriveled looking person with colorful tattoos, but we find out there is more to that image than meets the eye. And that is the crux of the story, basically a one and done story being told in this issue.
Well, sort of. It is also playing into the bigger arc that what's pretty much what started in a sense with
in a very small way.
Because there is a mystery that Steven's kind of getting hip to, in that with the last couple of issues it was the Wrecker and his new crowbar and the Wrecking Crew and their new items of power. In this one, there seems to be a
tool.
A tattoo inking gun that has mystical properties to it that is seemingly coming from somewhere, and apparently he gets hip to where that one possibly place would be at the end of this book. But before we get there, some would argue, as Agent 70 was kind of alluded to, is like we may be possibly seeing Mark Waid's treatise on tattoos. We don't know, it's like, because the way he wrote about the how one feels about tattoos, or a character feels about tattoos, maybe kind of being inferred about his personal beliefs. We don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Probably should ask him if you care that much. Right. Nevertheless, though, it was a pretty good story, though. For as I just said, it's kind of being a one and done, but it does still have a tie to.
Right, it definitely has. Right, it's definitely furthering the overall story arc, but it definitely has a feel of the one and done, because we have this particular crisis that seems to be medical related, but upon further investigation, requires the skilled magical hands, not necessarily surgical hands, of one Sorcerer Supreme. So we explore a particular dimension that we may not be all that familiar with in the magic realm, and and there's also, I believe, a setup for as I'm flipping through our copy, there's a setup for the Strange Academy in here as well, just a brief one, I think.
Are you referring to the phone call he gets?
Yes.
I actually didn't think about that, but yeah, I guess so. Because yes, one Zelma Staten calls and leaves a message at his assistant's desk, and I was kind of happy to see that. So, but yeah, I guess that could very well be that.
Right. But getting back to the main story in this issue, essentially, without spoiling too much, there is nefarious magic at work, and it revolves around a tattoo. And as Roddykat mentioned earlier, it's basically being spread by a particular tattoo gun that is, let's say, partially sourced from Doctor Strange's own
forge.
Yeah, I was gonna say his own weapons his own weaponsmithing, without going too detailed into how this came to be. At least as
Yeah,
parts,
we'll-
right?
we'll-
At least as parts,
out.
right? It may not be the entire tattoo gun, but at least as parts that were
Well, I believe
forged.
the
Because
inference.
he's not making tattoo guns. That's the point. But
Well, he's not. Somebody might have been using the metal, some particular.
right, exactly.
to do it.
Exactly. That's the point. Is that there's parts of the gun that appear to have been sourced from his forge.
Or possibly the whole thing. Is I don't know how to make a tattoo gun, so it's quite possible. The whole thing could have been made out of it, and whatever. But that's beside the point because like I said, it is what it is, and that's what's going to, I'm assuming, lead Steven into trying to figure out what's going with that going further. So, and we will find out when he finds out, I would imagine, because there has not been much else shown. But it was a pretty decent issue. Like I said, that whole Isaac called it the psych rock album cover realm was the art was in that world was pretty well done. Whether
Kev Walker, I was about to say Kev Walker's killing it in this book.
Yeah, oh yeah, his art is great.
Rocking.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing an excellent job.
Whether we see that realm again and or that the demon that was wielding the tattoo gun ever again, who knows, or that could have just been a means to an end for this story.
Absolutely.
That being the case, we can move on to, I guess,
What's next?
oh, you know what? We got to get the X-Men.
Okay.
So, X-Men number 6, because I know I've seen some scuttlebutt online, and I know there are more people than just myself and probably you who and anybody else are kind of excited about what is happening in this issue. So we basically get, which I didn't realize that at first, we get a flashback to that mission from Hoxpox,
right?
And apparently, a part we didn't see on that mission is Mystique's part in it, while everybody else was doing, whatever.
We did. I think we actually questioned her presence on the mission.
We did, but we didn't see what she was doing.
We didn't get the whole picture, right? We definitely saw her. We definitely saw her infiltration, but then we also saw her getting taken out. So,
right. But in this issue, we see what her mission actually was, and we see whether it was successful or not. But never mind all of that, because along with that, Mystique has always been a wild card for the mutants, and Xavier and company has known this forever, and even states that in this issue. Now there is a thing that we the readers find out in Hoxpox about someone that is very, very close to Mystique, who is not around, who may have some long-reaching implications for the mutants, for mutant kind, or their current state, I should say, who is not around anymore. And there's a reason for that, which no one in the world knows except for probably one or two people.
Right.
Least of all, Mystique does not know, but apparently she's been giving a slight heads up by said person in the course of this issue.
Right. Flashback.
Yes, during in a flashback. So, needless to say, without going too further, they have lit a fuse, of which is probably going to end up going off very, very at some point soon, and I kind of can't wait for it. Or at least maybe not soon, because obviously, because it seemed like it's kind of. I'm kind of surprised that this would have been brought up this quickly. But at the same time, Hickman plays a long game, and he could very well end up stretching this out.
Right. I would mention that Hickman has mentioned, I believe, in interviews online and in print or in podcasts, that there is a specific line of mutants that have not been resurrected yet,
Right.
And this character that we're referring to is basically the significant other of Mystique, falls into that category of mutant, and that is definitely part of the ongoing story why these particular mutants are not being resurrected.
Right, and I believe there is some text in the midst of this book. Or if it wasn't this one, it was probably like last issue, because I read like this in the last couple of issues. Well, this and last issue like back to back. So one of the issues kind of has the text that says, "Hey, yeah, there's a reason why
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason why certain mutants come back with other mutants of that kind, or at least that part about it. This is a kind of separate case, but there's a reason why certain mutants have not come back yet."
Right.
Or haven't come back in a certain time.
Right. There's definitely something very specific out there, and just take a look at some of the things that Hickman has been putting out about who actually gets resurrected in the pages of the X-Men. So
yeah. Also, this said character quotes from Force Awakens. Needless to say, if you're we're kind of dancing around who it is, but if you are aware of anything of Mystique's history and who she's been closely tied to, especially in the X books, like very closely tied to, you know who we're talking about. So it's not that big of a, it is not that big of a spoiler for that, but
it shouldn't be.
Yeah, but that's what makes this whole setup kind of so juicy, because like there's going to be some junk going on in the future,
right?
That's going to possibly very well set the place actually ablaze. We don't know, but we'll see. But the other little the stuff is also going on is that Orcus, the people that mission that the one mission was the target of, are still busy doing what they've been setting out to do, and apparently they have furthered their they've been furthering their plans even with that setback from that mission.
Right. Their reach is a lot. They have a much farther reach than we were initially led to believe.
Right. And I assume at some point we are going to get privy to what Omega Supreme's long-term goal. Like, we've seen the future stuff that she's involved with, so we know it goes somewhere. I'm just kind of curious to whether we're going to when we're going to get from there to motivations.
Right.
That, because that's what, like I said, there have been some things from Hoxpox that have come up, some of which a lot of which has been answered. Stuff like this is just now coming up with Mystique and her significant other, and other things that are going to happen in the quote unquote future of the mutants hasn't been fully breached yet, but still get kind of teased here and there. So
all right, just to wrap the discussion, if we're done on X-Men, what number is it? 6? This is written by Jonathan Hickman, as we mentioned. Art this issue is by Matteo Buffoni, and color is by color art. The color artist on this book is Sonny Go, and it's lettered by VC's Clayton Cowles. And the design work with the dots and the information pages remain, and they are designed by Tom Muller.
Thank you, sir. Pardon me. What in the world is that I got in the book?
What's next?
All right, maybe
Read that.
maybe 2 books more.
Maybe one more book, and then we'll call it to the rapid fire.
All right.
Let's see. What did you read?
Mostly Marvel stuff. I didn't get to finish the Pennyworth book.
Yeah, neither did I. Mortal Hulk.
Sure.
Round it out. Go for it.
Sure. So as I pull up the review copy of Immortal Hulk this week. So this issue is mostly told from the story from the perspective of the head scientist, the former head scientist of Shadow Base, and now head scientist of Shadow Base as it's being run by the Immortal Hulk, whose name escapes me at the moment.
McGowan. Dr. McGowan.
Oh, McGowan. Okay. So what we have is a brief origin story of Dr. McGowan, where we find out that she got her start doing lab work for the Kingpin, and
which has come up in the past, so we didn't know who specifically it was for, but we knew
Right.
that she was doing some stuff for
But-
some more folks.
But we also find out that, I don't know if we knew this before, that she was one of the scientists who was helping mutant growth hormone proliferate, when that was a big thing.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure.
So it was pretty interesting to see her history being told and her interactions with one particular crime fighter who is definitely known to be part of the opposition to the Kingpin's work.
Mhm.
It's not, I'm not really spoiling anything here because it doesn't really change the story, but we actually see what it's like to be on the other end, not the thug end or the henchman end of a Daredevil beating, but we see the evil scientist, because that's how they're characterized anyway, the evil scientist in the background while Daredevil is trying to take down a drug ring. So
Right. And her basic thing was like, yeah, she was there doing the work because she needed money for bills and whatever that was going. So she wasn't necessarily doing it for nefarious purposes.
Sure.
She just had things to do,
Well,
bills to pay. As you do.
I mean, that's kind of a tough justification, but
I mean, it is, but that is the justification. So it's yeah, it's like, yeah.
I mean, I know it's tough making money as a scientist. I know some scientists and they have to have a second job, so it's not easy.
Right, but that is their way in this story of saying, hey, she's, this is kind of what, this is her past, and I guess this is kind of on the way to her redemption, I would assume. We don't know,
We're not sure yet.
Yeah,
we're definitely not sure yet. It also plays into, and I'm not all that familiar with the villain who has been hired by Roxxon to go after the Hulk.
Yeah, neither do I.
This character, and it's not a spoiler because one, he was revealed last issue, and two, it's not someone that you think of right away, but Zemnu the Titan, who is the original Incredible Hulk of the Marvel Universe.
I'll be honest with everything he was saying. I'm kind of on the side because all he was basically saying. So he was, the whole time in this issue, he was pretty much playing to the character while Child Hulk was, beating up on him. But all the whole time he was like, "Remember this? Remember Lemonade? Remember your old?
This one got me. Remember Saturday morning television?
Exactly.
The smell of a new plastic toy. Remember being happy? Then you remember me, and with the googly moogly eyes." So
exactly. So he was clearly, there was some more mojo going on that doesn't lend itself right off the bat, but seems to kind of bear out during the course of this issue. There's some other things he's doing outside of just talking, that may be affecting people around him. Which one is potentially possibly the Hulk and other folk, but yeah. But like I said, hey, I was even on the side when he was talking about that. I was like, hey, I remember all that. Yes, I remember being happy. Yes. You're speaking to me now. What's up?
that's very funny.
So, but to what end? Well, to what end we kind of know, because we know he's working for Roxxon, and like I said, it was all a play for the character. I mean, play for sympathy, I guess you could say, or hits, to because they're basically trying to make the Hulk look bad, which he didn't necessarily need that much help until he got pulled back to the base. So, but yeah, like I said, I had intended to do a little research, into this Zemu character, and I didn't get a chance to do that because, like you, I wasn't really, wasn't really hip to who this person was. But I guess we'll get more, judging by that last page. I guess we may get a little bit more on that, one way, shape, or form in the next issue. So, given whatever happened.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a very well done issue. Al Ewing kills it on this book every month.
Mm-hmm.
Is this Joe Bennett's art? It should still
I
be.
think you're back, yeah.
So, this particular team up is doing excellent work. It looks like there's some additional artists on this book, I guess, to help it stay on schedule.
Right, because Joe Bennett was kind of still going through his personal stuff. But
Exactly. But looking for the credits page, it's Al Ewing, of course, as the scripter and the writer. Joe Bennett was the penciler on the main story, and Rui Jose Bellardino Bravo and Cam Smith were the inkers on the main story. And it looks like Javier Rodriguez was the penciler and colorist for the Dr. McGowan sequences in the past.
the
The flashback to Daredevil. And it makes sense that it was Javier Rodriguez. So
right. So cool beans. Actually, there was something we forgot to talk about in Amazing Spider-Man, but it's whatever, because there was that one backup, but just not that important.
Right.
So yeah, I guess that's it for Immortal Hulk. I can't remember anything else that was that happened with it. Oh wait, I do. This was a point that I meant to bring up because I apparently have it in my notes for some strange reason. Absorber Man's got a little wrinkle to his powers now, and at first he was like, "Wait, did he turn into Turbo Team?" Which, if you're of a certain finish, you would know what that reference is. But his normal thing is like he could turn into any take the properties of any metal or whatever, or any substance that he touches. But it seems in this case he looks like he transformed in addition to taking the properties of what he was touching at the time. And he even says, like, yeah, he was given his powers by a trickster god, and there doesn't seem to be any rules or any guidelines or rules to his powers. So that's basically saying, like, yeah, he's basically do anything,
right, or at least become anything,
right?
And I think that's definitely what's implied. Gives him more flexibility.
Yeah. Which like I said, given the classic things he's done with his powers, though, like I guess it makes sense. Not necessarily he needed it. But it's the thing that's there regardless.
Right.
So, but that is Immortal Hulk number 31. And I guess we will take this time to go into rapid fire.
Let's spin it up. All right. Let's see. I think I have fewer books than you. So
yeah, I think I've pretty much read everything you've read.
Go through
one.
Right. Let me go through with the one book. Let me start with the one book that you did not read, and I will not spoil. Thor number 3 involves Thor taking on, and it's not a big spoiler because it's definitely part of the end of the previous issue. Thor taking on Beta Ray Bill as Thor is on his quest to fulfill his promise to Galactus to help him power up by munching on some select planets that will juice Galactus's power level so that he can take on the coming Black Winter. And Beta Ray Bill is not having any of that stuff, and some combat ensues, and there's some very, very interesting developments in this issue. Definitely one of my potential clicks of the week. X-Force number 7. So this issue features a follow-up to the opening arc of this book, which was something happening to Domino. And the follow-up on that involves all sorts of little things, including her maybe not rekindling but her relationship with Colossus, but at least reconnecting with him. So that is X-Force number 7. Do you have anything to add?
And I think, and we may have, I feel like we had news about this, what the goings on in this particular issue, because her powers, but she's kind of lost the classic sense of her powers, and it seems like someone else has kind of picked that up.
Right.
But her powers have slightly changed, let's just say.
Right. Very Black Cat like.
Yes, basically.
Very Black Cat like. And I think the last book I've got is Arrow number 8. Gosh, it's up.
I also read that.
It's up to number 8 already. again, I guess our basic criticism of this story still stands in that it doesn't move very quickly, but I think this is the way it was laid out originally.
Right, it reads very quickly, but it kind of weirdly moves because it's even this book says it starts in the past, but it some kind of way seems like it just does a weird future forward shift in the middle of the book without any telling.
Right. There's no there's no storytelling mechanism or trope that we can use to differentiate between then and now so much. I think word balloons or little signs help us, but it's still not as easily understood as we are as we're used to. I would also say that we explore a little bit of Arrow's power in this issue, and it makes for a very interesting story in that she has to seek the counsel of someone who stands on the opposite side of the fence or the opposite side of the line from Arrow. So,
or at least yes, because again, there's the weird time framing of this issue. It says it started in the past, which we knew that this person was a mentor of hers, and this could have been where that was, but it's also talking about stuff that is going on in the current events. So
right.
therefore, it seems like, well, no, this is her going back to this person, even though they have one, battled, and two, well, they've basically sparred off in past issues, but now Arrow's going for her help, and then gets taught a new wrinkle to her powers, basically. Some would call it an upgrade. It's not saying there's an upgrade, but just puts her in touch with more of her power than she knew she had originally, or before, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's it for you?
Yep, that's it.
Alrighty. Well, for myself, we have Hawkeye Freefall number 3. So now we found out
free falling.
What that was gonna happen one of these days. So good. I'm glad you went ahead and just ripped that band-aid off. So yeah, we find out how Clint was in 2 places at once. It was some old tech that was apparently had to do with time travel from Kang that got busted up. But so now Clint needed a new way to try to keep up this ruse. And that comes in the form of that old standby and LMD, which ends up being, which partially ends up causing an issue between, more of an issue between him and his girlfriend, Night Nurse, during the course of this issue.
Night Nurse.
Yes. And apparently, Gyrick is still around, apparently, because he gets mentioned in this book. I'm like, wait, I hadn't heard that name in a minute. I didn't know he was still around. But then again, now that I think about it, he has shown up in Avengers as of probably a good 5 or 6 issues ago or something like that, or a while ago when they picked up that Squadron Supreme storyline.
Right.
Hey, remember that, folks? That thing's still
up in the air. It is.
But yeah, so like I said, so that's the thing. Black Widow, as what's been happening in the story, kind of like what happened in Black Widow's miniseries. People from Clint's past have been showing up, not necessarily Iron Man at this point, but like Winter Soldier, now Black Widow. Which her coming into this was kind of weird because she kind of comes in and like, hey, I've seen this. She basically picks out the fact that, hey, I know you're Ronin. And and then she was like, well, I know you heard about me and Winter Soldier, and if I had known you'd going back to Ronin, things could have been different. And da 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 da. I'm saying like that was weird, and then she was just like, she just bounces. So that was kind of a weird thing. And then, like I said, we have the whole thing with the LMD and the shenanigans that ensues from that.
Right.
And with Night Nurse, it's an amusing issue, to say the least. Let's see. Next up, we have G.I. Joe number 5. So Jinx and Stalker go to try and recruit Zartan and the Dreadnoks, who basically has built up this community, who's been basically squatting on this community in, I can't remember where they are, but Cobra's got other plans for them. not for them, but Corvus got other plans for the land, and things doesn't necessarily go well with the recruitment that they thought they were. So, like, this is a weird not necessarily reimagining, but it's I don't know, this, you know, this whole thing with, hey, G.I. Joe's are now the outlaws, and Cobra's won and basically taking over America. The whole situation could have been kind of been parsed out kind of slowly, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know if this is going to get anywhere, or if they're going to allow it to get anywhere, because the last couple of volumes didn't necessarily get the breathing room to tell the stories like they needed to.
Mm-hmm.
So whether this one we get it, we'll see. Black Panther and I was about to say Sons of Anarchy, but that was G.I. Joe kind of the thing, because they did kind of play that Dreadnought community like a Sons of Anarchy, that type situation. Mind you, I've never seen Sons of Anarchy, so go figure. Black Panther and Agents of Wakanda. The team runs across OG Nick Fury, LMD,
Right.
and the Live Wires, which apparently, I think we've said this last issue, Live Wires basically was a group that had a miniseries from back in 2005, 6, something like that. And now they are back again, and the team battles them, but then some things get right in the world things get balanced out thanks to Deadpool's involvement, and the case is shut on that whole situation. But yeah, and like I said, the reference to their miniseries is there if you want to go check that out on like Marvel Unlimited. I didn't know anything about these folks until this, so I may have to go check that out. And apparently, I guess Deadpool's recent annual or whatever the case may be, also had a team up with one of them, because that was also referenced in this. So go figure. And Deadpool also asked a very funny, pertinent question that if you wonder what happens to the contractors of the Death Star or those like people, he asked that kind of a question.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always funny to ask. Anyway, Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey #1. This is not, I repeat, this is not the story of the movie. However,
that's funny.
However, as I say in my notes, it is a not movie coming together of the movie squad because of not movie related Harley Quinn shenanigans. This is the team that has been doing Harley Quinn solo book. That is Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti. So it is that art style. It is that type of humor that is in there, and basically, Harley's at a low point because of her relationship because of something she did with her relationship with Poison Ivy, and things she's kind of let flounder with her personal life, with some of which I think kind of played out in her solo book. I haven't read it in a while, so I don't know. That caused some things to go wrong with the people around her. So now she's trying to make good with it, but this basically sends her back to Gotham, which puts a target on her head with a certain ex of hers, and also some folks she owes money to at the same portion at the same time, which puts her in direct path to the Huntress, Cassandra Cain, and at the end of this issue, Renee Montoya. So there's only one other person that is missing, and I'm pretty sure that person will be showing up next issue. But yeah, if you are a fan of that creative team and that type of humor with Harley Quinn, you may enjoy this book. And last but not least, Excalibur #7. Excuse me. It's Apocalypse, or whatever that symbol he's going by right now, is basically expanding Krakoa into Otherworld. He needs, for some strange reason, werewolves heads, and as we classically know from Excalibur, that is a thing that the team has dealt with before, except for this is a different team from the classic team. But there was a reference to the classic folks. who don't show up in this book, sadly enough, yet. So there's a hunt that's being led by Cullen Bloodstone to get them what they need of these werewolves, but the game gets changed by Cullen Bloodstone because because the mutants come and use their powers, and now he's like, well, no, I'm going to hunt you guys, and you do the hunting of the werewolves and get what and so this is another little side story that ends up happening. I don't understand why in the world werewolves was even in the London Zoo at all, but that seemed like a mistake that was bound to,
Come back.
Yeah, bound to come back at some point, but it kind of doesn't, not in the way that you expected it to. So, but nevertheless, that is a thing. So yeah, werewolves, Excalibur, that's a thing that happens.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I'm glad that I put this back on my pull list. So, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Like, I'm not sure what, this is definitely hitting on territories that's like outside of what's going on, slightly outside of what's going on with the other books.
Right.
But I mean, you got to have that with as many X books as there are and or will be. So, it is what it is. And with that, that is the end of our books. We can now go to Collects of the Week. Yes, that. And we have one click of the week from Tim Dog 98, and that is Hawkeye Freak Style number 3.
Cool.
Yeah. I know he's kind of a fan of Rosenberg's writing.
Free falling.
The book's been kind of fun, but it's also been kind of slightly by the numbers, especially when you're dealing with the Hawkeye.
I'm free.
But yeah, well, like I said, it's a decent book. But
falling.
Or is that your way of
No, I'm not. I am not choosing Free Falling as my click of the week. My click of the week is a book that you did not read. It is Thor number 3. Didn't have a chance to talk about the creative team on this book. It has been an interesting start. It doesn't feel as grand as the story seems to be. It doesn't feel as big yet. It doesn't feel as big as Jason Aaron's run.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's definitely where Donny Cates is that's where he's trying to go. He's striving for. As I mentioned, this is written by Donny Cates with art by Nick Klein and colors by Matt Wilson, lettering by VC's Joe Sabino.
VC's getting all the stuff. Let me stop. Okay, cool beans. Actually, let me before I forget, put that in the thing. For myself, we don't have one for Dirt this week because he's busy enjoying Sonic the Hedgehog, or was on a school night.
It's interesting. It's very interesting,
I suppose. I don't know. Amazing Spider-Man was pretty good. I did enjoy that. Actually, though, I think I'm going to go with X-Men number 6, though, because, like I said previously, I love the implications of what could be coming down the line at some point. They will probably not get to it directly right away, but that match shall be lit soon, and I can't wait for it. And with that, pardon me, we will go to the first ad read of the night, which I forgot to ask you about previously.
I will tell you what I chose, and it'll give you a chance to pull it up. Audible.com. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. For you, the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You can try books like Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, the autobiography of Gucci Mane by Gucci Mane, The Best in the World at What I Have No Idea by Chris Jericho, and It by Stephen King. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Comic Book Chronicles. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Comic Book Chronicles for your free audiobook. Do it today. This ad read seems to have changed slightly, so
I was about to say, wait, did you pick those books, or is that actually in the read?
that's in the read. There are options in the read.
We should totally. I don't know if we can. If we have a. I don't know if we can get to the catalog, but we should actually totally do a picks of our own.
We'll have to take a
Well,
look.
I don't use Audible. I think I did. Why not?
I've done it before.
Yeah, I think I have like a book or two from them, but I haven't done. So I don't know. Some, like I said, something a little bit more. But you know what? Later, we'll talk about that later. 'Cause
Sure.
now we are going to get into the cinematic news. And first off, Star Trek Picard showrunner explains apparent continuity error with Next Generation. TLDR, they don't want. Actually, I shouldn't say TLDR. I can't. I don't even know. But basically, showrunner Michael Chabon took to Instagram to answer this question on something that was mentioned during a recent episode of Star Trek Picard dealing with Romulan cyberneticists and data. Which would basically fly into the face of a old Next Generation episode, and he basically says being a Romulan cyberneticist is kind of like being a Nazi doctor, in quotes. I do not find that concept particularly appealing. Data sagely replies to his Romulan companion, nor should you, is the telling reply. So he's basically saying, and he also goes on to say is that Chabon is encouraging fans to look past the text of that line of dialogue into the subtext, which basically means that, hey, they probably didn't think of that out fully when they made this episode, and they want you to forget that it's a that it's a continuity error. That is just me editorializing. I could totally be wrong. Because I haven't watched the episode, and I don't remember the episode it's referring back to anyway.
Gotcha. I was about to say,
let me read that. I remember the name of it. I just don't remember what happened in that. So
I was just looking at an email I got on my phone from East Coast Comic Con. Apparently, Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman are appearing at East Coast Comic Con in May 2020. Interesting. That's
Okay.
a high-powered guess right there.
Cool. Nice.
So next up, Doctor Strange 2 has picked up Loki's head writer. So more shakeups for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. The sequel has picked up a new writer is also being added to the mix. Michael Waldron, who is the head writer on Loki, the Disney Plus show.
That sounds right. Yes, it says yes, he's also the head writer for Marvel's upcoming Loki, part of Disney Plus. So yes.
Alrighty.
Cool. And speaking of that show, Loki Disney Plus series adds Gugu Mbatha-Raw to the cast. So that's dope. Yes, Mbatha-Raw is the latest addition to the cast, joining series lead Tom Hiddleston, Sophia Di Martino, and recently announced Owen Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we talked about this before. That's still a weird one for me. I don't know. As with most of these Marvel, the exact details of her character are being kept under wraps. So I guess we'll see when the show comes out, or whenever the listing comes out for IMDb, whichever comes first. Next.
Taika Waititi would direct a Star Wars movie if it apparently wasn't career suicide. You know, I guess he just doesn't want to be under that microscope because it's not even too harsh. It's just too dumb.
Well, no. So the article basically says that because he's doing The Mandalorian, so it's not like he's averse to doing Star Wars projects. So, but it basically says here that yeah, he's definitely considered making one, and I think he has been approached to make a Star Wars movie. But he says here, and I quote, I think people see me hanging out with people, especially with Star Wars, and think I'm having some big discussions about it. YTT told Variety after his Oscar win for that Jojo Rabbit movie did. I would definitely love to if it was right. I would want to do any kind of movie if it made sense and if it felt not like career suicide. And then the writer goes into postulate what he means by hanging with other people, meaning, the people he's been dealing with the Mandalorian. So he also says, I wish there was a better story. I'll put it that way. He continued, are there discussions about the Star Wars film? Like, yeah, I discussed with my friends in 1996 how cool Star Wars was. That's what they're going off. So, that doesn't mean he's not doing it. That doesn't mean he is doing it, but it just means that, he has thoughts.
Whoop-de-doo. Okay, what's next?
Nickelodeon's glitch text coming to coming to Netflix. Excuse me, because So for more than 5 years, Dan Milano from Greg Bunny and Eric Robles, Fanboy and Chum Chum, have been laboring on Glitch Text, a Nickelodeon cartoon. Initially set to debut in 2018 when it was first announced back in 2016, Nickelodeon's fans were beginning to ponder the exact status of the show. Besides an early glimpse video released in early 2019, the lack of any concrete news when it was expected to air had fans anxious if Glitch Text would ever see the light of day. So, and I guess since it's coming to Netflix, then there's a thing now. So I don't know too much about the show. So congrats. Next.
All right, so there's some concept art for Piccolo for Dragon Ball Evolution. It's out there. Apparently, it's better than what appeared in the movie.
Yeah, the movie wasn't great. So and it was his costuming wasn't necessarily, let's say anime accurate, but then again, hey, it's a live action movie. What do you expect? So yeah, there's some concept art that was shown on Instagram from an old sketch. I guess that's recently been brought up. And if you're watching the video, you can see said sketch. There you go. Next up. Oops. Yeah. Ignore the negative hype. Birds of Prey isn't a box office disaster. So yeah, there's ever since Birds of Prey came out last week, there's been a lot of rah-rah and hubbub about what the movie's done box office wise. It's like it made numbers. It didn't do. Don't think it has made its it hasn't made his filming money back. But looks like that weekend it was like 33.7 million.
That's not terrible. I think we're just, we're assuming that all these comic book movies are going to make a killing.
Well, I think this movie particularly has had some flack against it because of the fact, one, it's Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, and it's like all women. There's been some of that. That's definitely there. But yes, that what you just said is also a thing, but to a lesser degree. This is kind of some of the same stuff that Captain Marvel kind of went through to a certain degree. But but people harbor
nobody, so nobody cares because DC stays losing. So that's part of it. But
that's not fair because I'm actually hearing pretty good things about the movie. I haven't seen it myself due to
other circumstances. I understand, but
what?
I said due to other circumstances, not just not wanting to see the movie. I understand.
Basically, yeah. So anyway, to get to this, so yeah, like I said, it made 33 million in the first weekend. It's it's not a huge opening, but it's not like terrible, like we've been saying. So people are calling it a failure when it's not necessarily a failure when it's still doing halfway decent or whatever.
Right. It's not every movie.
February, like no movies are due. It's not. It's not necessarily.
Not like every movie makes back its budget in the first weekend.
Exactly. But people were just kind of going at it left and right. It was like, yeah, this movie's like gaga because of the numbers. I'm like, you can't always go by the first week numbers or first week numbers. That's not overall. It'd be a different story. It's like if a month from now and he still hadn't, and that's what it made. That'd be a different story. Anyway, moving right along.
All right. What the hell is next? Shazam 2, Black Adams are reportedly filmed simultaneously this summer. So The Rock's Black Adam's finally in production, and Shazam 2 and his bubble suit are gonna be being produced at the same time during this summer.
Yeah, who cares? We'll see it when we see it. If it actually does happen. Both of those projects that Black Adam project has been kind of up in the air for a length of time, so we'll see. Red Sun Superman red carpet premiere announced, and fans can get a ticket. So Warner Brothers Home Entertainment finally proudly presents the world premiere of Superman Red Sun, the next entry of the popular ongoing series of DC Universe movies, in the Silver Screen Theater at the Pacific Design Center in West Hollywood on February 24, 2020. Filmmakers and members of the voice cast will attend the event for red carpet media interviews and a post-screening panel discussion. There's the location of that particular theater, and the screening will begin at 7:00. A limited number of free tickets are available to the general public. So if you're around that area and you are wanting to check that out, hey, go for it. You got another week or so, less than a week. So, by the way, happy pre-Valentine's Day for those who celebrate such a thing. As of just recording, it is the day before, excuse me.
Right, we're still an hour ahead. So, in Batwoman, the character Beth has Beth and Alice in excruciating pain at the same time at the end of the most recent episode, and we won't know what happens until this Sunday, February 16th, where viewers can get a sneak peek of the episode with some new photos found online.
Still have not seen that show. Because we don't have a CW channel here anymore for some stupid reason. Anyway, Black Lightning has been slowly but surely putting together DC's Outsiders. Again, another show I don't get to watch anymore. But then again, I guess I could watch I still need to catch up because there are. Huh?
Is it on an app like The Seed or something?
I believe they are on CW Seed and may actually be on the also the CW app, but I'm not sure about that part. But I know they do show up on CW Seed like the day after. Okay. But again, I still need to catch up with the show. Period. They only put like 5 episodes of the show, so that would work for probably like Batwoman, but not for Black Lightning. So yeah, apparently they got the whole Markovian thing, kind of like almost like what Young Justice did with their last season, and so they're slowly but surely putting together the Outsiders. No Batman, good. Next up,
Legends of Tomorrow has big plans for Constantine in season 6. So ever since he's joined the Legends of Tomorrow in season 4, Constantine has proven to be a welcome addition to the team. So I guess there are some developments coming up for the character in that show.
And I'm sure one person that I know is very, very glad of that as a Matt Ryan fan and a Constantine fan. I'm sure they are happy for that, if they're even watching that show. Another cyborg cast for the next season of Doom Patrol. So Karen Oberlum has been cast in DC Universe's HBO Max's Doom Patrol and a recurring role of Ronnie Evers, according to Deadline. Oberlum's character is described as a military veteran with a mysterious past that Vic Stone Cyborg meets while attending a PTSD support group. With a name like Ronnie Evers, her character would seemingly be based on DC Comics' Ronald Evers, who was also working in the military. What's interesting, though, is that Evers eventually turned into a cyborg himself, even calling himself Cyborg and becoming an adversary to the Teen Titans member. So there you go. Cool. Next.
All right. WWE's Xavier Woods headlines DC Universe's new unscripted RPG gaming show. So apparently the DC Universe streaming service lives and has joined the tabletop gaming show craze with DCU All-Star Games, a series in which celebrity DC fans come together to play a variety of tabletop games, starting with the classic 1980s DC-based tabletop role-playing game DC Heroes. Okay.
So, matter of fact, go ahead and take the second one because it is also related.
DC Universe launches role-playing unscripted game show from Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sam Witwer.
Witwer.
Oh, is it Witwer? Okay.
Yeah.
Witwer. Sam.
Those two names, one of which recently played Kanan Jarrus
Right.
on Star Wars Rebels. The other, Darth Maul, who we will see again in Star Wars Clone Wars.
Reprising his role very soon.
Yes, both reprised their role, both roles respectively, because Kanan did show up as a voice in Rise of Skywalker. Side note, and bringing it up, I was gonna bring this up. I just got to that moment in season 4.
Oh, it's about time.
Yeah, so I'm almost finished with that. Even knowing not necessarily how it was going to happen, but knowing what was going to happen, it still kind of got me.
Sure.
I was like, oh man. Although I felt like there could have been a way out of that. But anyway, that's beside the point. And yeah, that was a heartbreaker. So anyway, yeah. So basically, that whole role-playing unscripted show is basically, so people who know Critical Role basically know what this is because it's pretty much the same thing, a similar thing, just with the DC Universe. With DC RPG stuff.
Sure.
Next up, 3 new RWBY. This would be pronounced Ruby, particularly shows coming in 2020. So the good folks at Rooster Teeth have 3 new RWBY shows coming down the pike. So cool, good for them.
Yeah.
Next.
Oh, we transition into comic book news.
Yes, we are. Oh wait, but before we do that,
what is there another page of?
No. Before we do that, I wanted to mention a couple of things in the clickbait section.
Okay.
So there is a interview with Vida Alaya about her Nebula book, which came out this week. So you can go check that out. That was on Newsarama. There's also, which I don't know if you saw this from IGN, Agent 70, but I thought you might have got a kick out of this. So it was a tweet that says, "Don't forget, knock knock, justice is coming."
No.
And then there's a thing that says, when the writers try to kill off your character, and with a GIF with Han busting through a door. Actually, that's not Han, but I guess it was a character he played in some show.
Right, something separate. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is him doing that and just busting through a door, talking about night so quickly. If you watch the video, you just saw what that was.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I got a kick out of that. And speaking of that, in the clickbait section, there has been no less than 2 articles pretty much about the same thing, but I think I only got one of them in here, and that would be Fast and Furious 9, 14 ways Han is still alive.
We only need one.
This is true. I mean, I think I've even said 1 or 2 in here myself. Now, granted, I haven't looked at this article, but someone went out of their way to gin up 14 ways that Han could still be alive. And I believe there is actually another video, a similar video that also expresses such a thing, or another article. One was and there's also a Stargirl explainer, because that Stargirl DC Universe / CW show is coming out soon. And so for those who need a primer on her, there is that. There is a primer for you folk from the good folks at IGN. And now we can get into the comic book news.
We transition.
Giant Size Magneto postponed 8 weeks. I believe this is not the first time it has been postponed, but it is now coming out on April 29th. It was originally solicited for March 4th. and then shifted to March 18th, and now April 29th. We don't know why.
It's still not Doomsday Clock, though.
No, that is true. That is absolutely true. So
I was about to say in polar opposite news, giant size X-Men Nightcrawler is bamfing in 3 weeks early. You know,
possibly because of that Magneto pushback.
right? The Jonathan Hickman written book with art by the classic Alan Davis is now primed to come out March 25th, not April 14th. Holy cow!
Yeah. So fans of Kurt rejoice. I am actually one of them, so that's cool.
Sure, I'd be happy to get that. That's a great creative team as well. So
yeah, and now we don't know what it's about because we don't know what any of these giant size X-Men is about. Just that they're focused on a particular character. But hey, who cares? Next, I don't know. There was a description of what was, but whatever. Phantom X returns for giant size X-Men. Speaking of that thing, I don't really care. I never liked that character.
just an odd character. Just an odd character.
Yeah, it's basically what it's kind of like Gambit and Wolverine with guns.
Yeah, it was just weird. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, kind of. But anyway, so yeah, Phantom X was last seen in 2017, 2018 is Astonishing X-Men. Donated his physical body to resurrect Xavier's consciousness from the astral realm. Okay, I didn't know any of this, but
right. Hey, that's a very recent development.
Yeah. So yeah, and he's gonna get his own giant size X-Men. Hoorah! And it looks like he's going up against AIM or something. Okay, cool. Peace. Next up,
as we spoke about earlier, Professor Xavier recruits Mystique into the fold in X-Men #6 preview. We discussed this issue earlier, but feel free to go take a look at this preview or pick up the book that's out this week.
Yep. And I would say do the latter because it's pretty good. But unless you're not caught up on it, then I understand. Juggernaut gets his first solo series. So for some strange reason, someone's giving Kane Marker a book because he's the Juggernaut, bitch. I don't know. Writer Fabian Necheza and artist Ron Garney will launch Juggernaut this May. A new 5-issue series starring Kane Marker as he finds his place in the dawn of X-Men status quo, which is kind of weird because he's not a mutant. And the story centers around Juggernaut's lack of place on Krakoa as a non-mutant. Speaking of,
there you go.
Yeah, whose powers are derived from the mystical gem of Sidorak. Despite his years of association with the X-Men, including that one thing with him as She-Hulk, which was also a funny thing, as both villain and an ally, and being Professor X's stepbrother. I'm coming for you, Charles Xavier.
Oh gosh,
if you remember Spider-Man and his amazing friends,
of course,
yeah.
I was about to say, if you are fortunate enough to have Disney Plus, you have been able to revisit that very episode.
Exactly. I haven't seen that episode. I still haven't watched that episode yet, but that is one episode that always stands out in my mind from even way back when.
Absolutely.
So anyway, Krakoa is mutants only, meaning that someone like Juggernaut is not allowed to live there. So we'll see what happens with that. Apparently, Juggernaut will team Kane Marker with a mysterious new character named D-Cell. Hopefully, that's not supposedly like Incel or D-Man, with powers that counter Juggernaut's unstoppable force, and he'll get new armor to boot. So, okay.
All right.
Next up.
Here's your first look at the new X Factor costume. So, this is the book from writer Leah Williams and artist David Baldion. It's going to focus on a version of X Factor investigations where, while mutants cannot die, or at least can be brought back on Krakoa, they will be tasking X Factor into investigating why some of these mutants are getting whacked.
Right. And actually, speaking of, because there was something in the X-Men from this week that I had a curiosity about, because or was it was either this week's or last issues, and that when mutants get resurrected, some mutants have had some things about they've basically had some things changed about them, like either how their powers or work, or something that has been messing with them about that, or messing with them with usage of their powers. So they've been having that tweaked during the resurrection, which brought me up to my question is like, wait, so why couldn't Cyclops thing be fixed? Because he's always had that thing where it's like when he got bumped in the head, and he had to wear the glasses or else his powers would go off. Even Rogue, but then again, Rogue hasn't been resurrected yet, but her powers got quote unquote fixed in the other means. So that's kind of bothered me. I don't know. But they kind of slightly address it in X-Men Needs of this one or last week. Moving right along. Larry Hama returns to Wolverine and Albert and LCD. Or I don't know about those names, but you can tell me about that. I'm sure
you don't remember that. It's a early '90s era on Wolverine where Larry Hama was working very closely with Mark Silvestri on Wolverine.
No, because I didn't read it.
Gotcha. So yeah, Albert and LCD are androids introduced during that run, and that's why they come up during Iron Man 2020.
Right, and that I Wolverine book that is, I guess, coming out like next week or whenever the case may be.
Exactly.
So okay, so cool. So there you go. And that is the thing on that. Hey, look, Hama's been out there because he's doing G.I. Joe now, and he's doing this, and I know he's been doing this thing. So it's always love to see him, see his work regardless.
Absolutely.
Next up.
Alrighty. Marvel's Free Comic Book Day releases set up a game-changing story in X-Men, Venom, and Spider-Man. So what are the creative teams here? The X-Men book is going to feature a new tale from Jonathan Hickman and Pepe Larraz. That's from Hox Pox. That's one of the teams from Hox Pox. And if I open up the article, I guess I'll see more of the creative teams that are.
It's basically does Don Cates, Ryan Stegman, Jack McKay, Patrick Gleason.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's the Spidey crew. Okay,
right, from Venom, Amazing Spider-Man, and Black Cat.
Right.
Yeah. Looks like Tom Taylor's doing. Looks like Tom Taylor's doing a backup in that X book with Ibn Coelho.
All right.
So cool. Which I don't know if Tom Taylor. Wait, has Tom Taylor done much Marvel stuff?
He's done X-Men.
Has he? Like I know. Well, I know he's done like a lot of one. Okay, never mind. Moving right along.
He's done series on X-Men. Tom Taylor, and I think he also had a Spidey book, didn't he?
Yeah, that I do know. Okay, yes, I do know he did a Spidey book. In fact, a fairly recent Spidey book.
Was it Friendly Neighborhood?
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. I think it was Friendly Neighborhood.
Okay, yeah, because it was like for some reason I was thinking, because I know always go back to Injustice or whatever, his DC stuff, but keep forgetting about that. Anyway, Thor's Galactus Alliance leads to a conflict with the greatest ally. We kind of already talked about this.
That is this week's issue. Don't spoil it for Roddykat.
I mean, I already know. So
no, I mean not just who appears, but
sure
what happens.
Yeah, but yeah. So that is a shout out to Tim Dog, who wrote that article.
Yay, Tim!
We
knew him when.
Indeed, from whence he came, which was this very show. Next up,
let's see.
Thor
plunges hammer first into Empire after it hurts his mom Gaia. Yeah, that Gaia. Empire Thor #1 launches this May, tying the God of Thunder to Marvel's next big event with 3-issue series. Okay. Written by who? Ram V or Ram 5 with art from Pasquale Ferry, who I know.
Okay.
I recognize that name at least.
Oh, I was about to say you actually know him.
No, I don't know Pasquale Ferry. That'd be cool.
Okay.
Empire Thor ties Thor's mother Gaia, the Earth Goddess, to Empire, with Thor working to save her from the influence of the combined Kree and Skrull empires. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that Ram V is short for something. He just initialed his name. Anywho, or her name. We don't know. Thor number 4, first look, pits the Herald of Galactus against Lady Sith. So I assume that some of that was informed by this week's book. If not, then hey, guess what? Sith's about to roll up on Galactus, I guess. And there's some art from said book. Looking good art at that. That you can see in this article. Next.
Okay. Wait, which one did you do? You did the first one, right? Okay. Empire number 3 features the return of a long missing Avenger. So a long missing Avenger may actually end up returning in an upcoming issue of Empire. So in the sneak peek, Marvel revealed a preview of the cover for Empire number 3. So that's 3 full issues into the miniseries. And the solicitation for the book teases the return of a long-lost Avenger. It's not clear who it is.
Except for this article mentions who is on the cover.
Right, Marvel.
Yep.
Appears to be on the cover.
In a new suit.
New suit!
Which there had been someone fairly recently posing as Marvel in something related to Captain Marvel.
There's been a million teases for that, so you never know.
Yeah, so whether this is the real deal or whatever the case may be, it's not an LMD probably, or whatever the case may be. Who knows? We'll see whenever that whole shebang comes up. Marvel teases most ambitious series ever with Marvel's creative team. Marvel Comics has released a teaser, announces its most ambitious series ever, with Marvel's creators Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross, along with artist Yadire Senar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yildere, I think it is.
Okay. No further details about the series were announced, though Marvel did include art from Ross and featuring a number of Marvel characters dating from the Golden Age and the present day, including Arcus, the original Vision, Spider-Man, Human Torch, Punisher, Storm, Iron Man, Arrow, and an unidentified character in a black and yellow winged suit. Not Yellowjack, apparently. And it's not Wayne, so maybe it's a new. So if you're watching the video, you can see the said cover, which interesting. Guess further details on that later.
Okay.
Next up.
Let's see. Evel Ewing.
No, before that.
Oh, you did that one already? Okay. Oh, I gotcha. Spoilers. No. Marvel's God power theory on superpowers is nuts, and you might hate it. Oh, well, we've talked about it before. So,
so basically, this is kind of go back to what we talked about with X-Men and Fantastic Four. We touched on that whole theory, but we didn't necessarily go fully into it. Well, we went enough into it. So, but yeah, this basically an article is going a little in depth more about about that theory and where it comes from and that kind of stuff, some of which we talked about last week. Now, Evel Ewing is shaping the future of Marvel Universe. Prep for Champions and Outlawed with the All-Star Scribe. And this is basically an article talking about where Eve Ewing is taking the Champions and and basically setting the stage for what's happening during and after Outlawed with Kamala and Miles and the youngsters of the MCU, or not the MCU, of the Marvel U. So worth a good read. Check it out. We are sadly getting a new Power Pack series. We've already talked about that. I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you don't have why it's a problem to have a whatchamacallit.
Actually, I don't know. I slightly kid. Power Pack is not that bad. It was just like that was just a weird timely group. Like, and granted, a couple of Future Foundation has featured a couple of them prominently recently, so it was a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, next up,
where are we now?
Captain America 20.
Sorry, little tired. Captain America number 20, Fantastic Four number 20, Valkyrie Jane Foster number 9. Change artists because they have to try to stay on schedule.
Yeah, basically. And yeah, we go through who's doing what. Apparently, Cafu is stepped down from drawing issue number 9 of Valkyrie Jane Foster, being replaced by Ramon Rosanas. Fantasy Four 20 will be drawn by Paco Medina, who is replacing Sean Isaacs. And Robert Quinn has replaced Jason Masters on Captain America 20.
Okay.
So, Batman's Tom King claims he wouldn't have killed Alfred, but DC interviewed. Worth noting that Batman Pennyworth came out this week. This was it, Pennyworth R.I.P. something like that.
Right.
Came out this week. I didn't get a chance to read it. I don't think you did either.
I started it.
Okay.
I mean, it's mostly vignettes, but like revolving around the various members of the Bat family as they mourn.
Sure.
I just flipped through it.
So yeah, which is about to say second time in a good year, 2 years that Alfred's been killed. But hey, so wait, never mind. We don't have to go into all that because I was about to ask something like that I should have asked last week. But yeah, so former Batman writer Tom King has opened up about his decision to kill Alfred Pennyworth, Bruce's loyal butler and sort of father figure in Batman 77, telling the Word Balloon podcast that the decision to kill Alfred came from DC after King himself planned to save his life following a cliffhanger ending. Quote unquote, I got the opposite of pushback. I got pushed forward, King explained. I sort of had this cliffhanger where Alfred at the end was gonna perish, or could perish. And I put it in the script, like, of course, we figure it out later and he's not dead. And DC's like, no, why isn't he? Why is he not dead? And I'm like, well, because he's Alfred and he has to live forever. Because he's a fantastic hero. And they're like, no, he's dead. So, you want to know why Alfred is dead? Blame DC.
That's funny.
Yeah. Next up,
Batman Catwoman shows Bruce and Selina from the moment they met till the moment they die. Apparently, that's from Tom King. He doesn't want to spoil the whole thing. It's about a 50-year relationship between Batman and Catwoman from the moment they meet, as I said, until the moment they die, and what that relationship does to them over all these years. I don't want to say huge. It's big.
They say it's huge. He won't say it, but they say it. Next up, Inside aborted New 52 Superboy title by Tom King and Kenneth Rocafort. Writer Tom King has shared 2 pieces of concept art for an aborted Superboy title that was intended to watch as a part of DC's New 52, designed for a return of Superboy by Kenneth Rocafort. This was part of a New 52 Superboy series I was supposed to write a bunch of years ago that fell apart for many reasons. Design is still cool though. Never posted it before, I don't think. And you can see a couple of pieces of said art, including what looks to be a new Miss Marvel sketching, which Miss Marvel is still kind of around, but this was a few years ago. So King did not give a reason for why the Superboy series never ended up happening. Probably because DC probably had other plans, I would assume. Right. Next up,
Snyder and Capullo's Dark Knight's Metal is going to be announced this week. Wonderful. So has it been announced yet, or because we're
yes, because the next article, Knuckle Dustin Superman teases Snyder and Capullo's Metal Encore. So you got much like that Wonder Woman teaser that we saw from, I believe, last week with the chainsaw sword or whatever. We get a long-haired knuckle duster brandishing Superman stars in the second teaser for Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Dark Knight's Metal Encore. And we might have the name of it, which we do, because in the next article, Okay, I'll take it.
No, I was about to read it.
Okay.
Wonder Woman stars in Dark Knight's sequel, Death Metal, from Snyder and Capullo. Isn't that wonderful? I'm so tired.
Well, I mean, I know. Dark Knight's Metal has taken a lot out of you from reading it. I understand.
Like, really? I
never read it, so I know it was supposed to be this big thing, and a lot of things kind of came out of it, but I don't see how any of that bear it out, especially with what happened in Justice League recently. And I guess Doomsday Clock. Whatever. We're almost home, folks, because we only got a couple more articles to go. DC's Terrifics lets you choose your own adventure in number 25, which came out this week, by the way. As Terrifics begins a new future-focused direction for the team this year, this week's milestone 25 features a story that allows the reader to choose the path they will take, a la Choose Your Own Adventure story. I love Choose Your Own Adventure books. In fact, I have a board game that's sitting right over there if you can't see, because I'm pointing to my left and you can't see me. That is based off Choose Your Own Adventure books. Anyway, the oversized issue by series writer Jean Luen Yang and guest artist Dan Mora gives options to the reader and prompts them to turn to page blank if they want to choose one action, or turn to another page for a different one, which I imagine that kind of plays off slightly differently in digital format. I mean, the same, but still, because you kind of got to flip through the pages unless you're using a specific format. Anyway, that's the kind of neat. I think they hadn't done that since that Deadpool book. Well, it hasn't been done since that Deadpool book, like last year sometime. But it says it's all a part of Yang's new focus on what he believes is a defining characteristics of the Terrifics team, its belief in the future, or as Yang puts it, building a future through technology and science. The new focus will go DC-wide in April with the introduction of the Terrific Council, pulling together what Yang calls the nerds of the DC universe. The Terrifics will get help from a group of science and tech heroes like Kirk Langstrom and Ted Kord, whom I thought was dead, calling them the Terrific Council. And then it goes into an interview with the writer. So cool. If anybody should check that out. I know the person who was reading this book was Dirt. I don't know if he ever got around to it. I keep saying I'm gonna catch up with it, but I haven't done it so yet.
Right. I don't know if he's still on.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, because we know he was reading it, but I don't know. I think he still is though, because I feel like not the last time he was on. Before that, he was reading as of a few issues ago.
Okay,
I believe. Anyway, next up.
All right, so DC Zatanna has been reimagined in the House of Secrets, which is what do you call it? It's a young adult type, actually teenager.
Yeah.
Stuff. It's written by novelist Matthew Cody with art by Yoshitani. Zatanna and the House of Secrets is part of DC's line of middle grade and young adult graphic novels. It depicts Zatanna as a 7th grader and all the crap that comes with that.
Yes. I know. I would be interested in checking this out. Just a little young for my taste, but hey, I'm a fan of Zatanna as a character. But we'll see. Anywho, I believe that is actually out this week also. Actually, let me say something before I get to this last story. Yep, cool. Archie Comics editor-in-chief Victor Gorlick dies at age 78. Sorry to go out on such a sad note, but it is a thing. Archie Comics longtime editor-in-chief, co-president Victor Gorlick has died at the age of 78, as announced by the company. We are extremely heartbroken and devastated to inform the Archie family of the passing of Archie icon and editor-in-chief Victor Gorlick, who made Riverdale his home for over 60 years. The Pelham, New York-based company said in a statement, "No person embodies the Archie spirit more than Victor, who is a leader, friend, and mentor to everyone that walked through the doors of Archie." And then it goes through his history with the company. So sorry to his family for the loss.
Yep.
And with that, folks, we have come to the end of the Comic Book Chronicles. But first, I understand we have a little show and tell, a little tour corner.
Just a little. So, while I reopen my ad reads because somehow I closed them by accident, after some frustration with recent releases from Marvel Legends, I guess what I've been meaning to say is just I wasn't in the mood to buy entire sets for a while. I saw a great many figures that I wanted, but just maybe one or two out of a set of 5 or 6. So I happened upon not my local Target, but a Target that's not terribly far from me in the great borough of Brooklyn. And I noticed that there were some Marvel Legends on the pegs. They actually had some Fantastic Four ones, but I actually intend to get that as a set. So I let those be. I walked to the end of the aisle, and what did I see? The discount.
Hey, dope fiend shoot and dope who don't know the meaning of what to us. Oh, I'm sorry.
The discount bin. What did I spy in the discount bin? Marvel Legends for $10. What I have in my hand is a rescue from the recent Avengers in Endgame series that featured Build-A-Figure Hulk for $10 whole.
Oh wait, let me put the. Oh yeah, there you go. Focus on you.
Right, $10 whole. Right, just
Okay.
for this.
I mean,
Pretty
it is
cool.
rescue, so sure.
Right, but there's more. What else did I spy in the $10 discount bin?
Nani?
The comic book version of Loki. $10 whole.
Hold it up a little bit. There you go. Nice.
$10 whole.
Classic Loki.
Yes, OG Loki. Right?
Okay.
That's another.
Wait, and where were you? Where were you? I'm sorry. Where did you say you were?
I was at a Target.
Okay. Huh.
And the last figure I got for $10 whole is someone that we were referring to tonight that was also released in this particular Marvel Legends wave. One Beta Ray Bill.
Oh, nice. Wait, you didn't already have one?
No, I did not have this particular version. I wasn't so keen on getting this because it has the updated comic book costume. I have a very old non-Marvel Legends Beta Ray build that I really like because it seems to resemble the original design by Walt Simonson.
Gotcha.
Excuse me, but I really like this figure. So, and it's kind of grown on me. So it was pretty easy to pick this up for $10.
Okay.
Last but not least, though. Actually, wait, not last. There's 2 more coming. These are very recent figures. These have been filtering their way into Walmarts around the New York City area. This is the Demo Goblin wave. First up is the OG Vulture.
Oh, okay.
Adrian Toomes with the ultimate Adrian Toomes head in there if you look closely.
Mm-hmm.
So that is that can be 2 versions of the Vulture, and that will definitely help build a little Sinister Six. Although now I think I need to go find that Scorpion that came out not too long ago. Now we're up to last and definitely not least.
You need a drum roll or you good?
I can put in a drum roll. Let's see. Where is my drum roll? From the same Demo Goblin wave, one Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu.
Oh, I gotta get that one.
With all the hands. So I have to tell you that this is a really cool figure, despite the fact that he's running around with no shirt and red pants.
I mean, it is the old school, slightly problematic Shang-Chi. But,
right. But ultimately, it's a really cool figure. Sorry for the glare, folks. But it's really cool. Here we go. There's less glare. So I happened to find this in a random store, and I was happy to get it because apparently this is slightly in demand. So I didn't see it on Amazon, although they may have restocked it since I checked.
I guess given the buzz of what could be coming to the MCU.
Yeah. And also it's one of those figures that has the torso of the Build-A-Figure.
Sure.
And anytime the torso is included, it's usually some for people who are trying to
Whatever it is.
build it exactly. That's usually a pretty in-demand figure. So
And I just wonder for Shang-Chi.
yep. So I'm glad to have Shang-Chi, Marvel Legends. That is no joke. I just really am happy to see that. So,
Open up an updated version with the more modern take, but I kind of
I was about to say it'd be nice to see like some of the uniforms that he was wearing in Hickman's Avengers, because that was really
kind of
sweet.
wearing, but
Well, no, what I was gonna say is he was wearing stuff that was definitely inspired by like Game of Death Bruce Lee, but in different colors.
yeah, that is true.
You know, like kind of tracksuit. You know what I mean?
I did
Like,
do
that was
tracksuit,
really
yeah.
cool. I really liked that version. You know,
Yeah.
it made him look super heroic, and that's kind of the version that we see in Agents of Atlas as well.
Right.
The latest Agents of Atlas, the latest.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, the more modern take, he's still kind of yeah. That's cool. I'm gonna have to see if I can hunt that down at you said Walmart for that one, right?
No, Target. It's not an exclusive, but I happened to find it in a different store. So
Gotcha.
because I did not see it, I did see this Vulture in a Walgreens, but this and they're in the same wave.
Right.
So
Yeah, sometimes Walgreens will have it like exclusives.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but Walgreens is hit and miss sometimes with these figures. Sometimes they'll have the entire set, and sometimes they'll just have the same figure because someone who was packing those totes that carry all the stuff that goes to each Walgreens got to be a real jerk or something.
I think I found I dare say I found my whole Fantastic Four set, or at the very least, Sue and Ben.
Oh no, but those were exclusives. Those were Walgreens exclusives.
That's what I'm saying. That's where I pretty much. But I think I found all of them there outside of those two, or just those two. I can't remember though.
Right. Those were Walgreens. The new. I'm looking. I'm actually one of the few people probably looking forward to getting the new Fantastic Four with the darker costumes from the Hickman run. So. But anyway, that is our toy corner / toy box / whatever it is we're going to try to call it. So our last ad read for the night. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, you know what I like to read when I'm tired? Guess what? I'm waiting for it to come up, so I'm stalling. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us. Then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop as Roddykat tries to pull up the Amazon. Oh, no, he's not going to do the Amazon one. That's right. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or even Marvel Legends when they have them in stock. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
We're not to find the high quality logo of the Amazon. That's weird. Of course, then again, I think I probably have one. I just didn't pull it up. Anyway, doesn't matter. Thank you for coming out for this here Comic Book Chronicles podcast. We will be back next week, same time, same bat channel on the Click Nation's YouTube channel. 9:30-ish p.m. Eastern time was when we record this here jobby. So you can come check us out then if you so desire, or you can check us out later on the audio stuff, which we will talk about in a second. For myself, Roddykat, you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can also find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. I'm hoping to be getting my sites back at some point because there's some stuff I've been wanting to do. You can also find me at CB Caps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PCN_Dirt on Twitter. Pop Culture Nets on Twitter. PopCultureNetwork.com. And Byte, the Neo Vine of the time, at CMCRVWS. Right. Yes, CMCRVW. Yes, I was right. Hey. And Tim, DOGG98, the Osiris of this issue. You find him at that on Twitter. The Click Nation on Twitter. TheClickNation.com. That's DKLIQNATION. You can also find him at the CB Cron Twitter account, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter. You can also find him at Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. Yeah, go holler at that dude. Go get his, go read his stuff. Give him some clicks. Tell him we sent you. Tell him we miss him. You can also find this here podcast on the Cold Slither Podcast Network, CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find this here podcast on your podcast perusal place of choice, and that would be either Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, the Cold Slithers, the Cold Slither, Spotify, and the Cold Slither sound. That's wow.
The Cold Slither Podcast SoundCloud page.
SoundCloud page, all that. SoundCloud, y'all. We not rappers, but we crush a lot.
Yeah.
And with that, excuse me. And with that, folks.
With that big pun reference.
Yeah, I know, right? This has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.
And
No sleep till Brooklyn.
in Ben Pun's name we pray. Amen.
oh goodness.